Alright, good morning. Let's go over today's trade plan. So in the overnight session we had resistance at 13.5 to 15.5 and ES ended up finding responsive sellers at that zone overnight. NQ found sellers a little bit ahead of its current yearly high, and TF also attracted sellers above yesterday's high and put in a pretty decent pullback so far. So overnight we've seen, even though the markets did push higher, we've seen some pretty decent selling pressure, especially in the Russell. So, given that ES is at all-time highs and, we're seeing some resistance come into play here in the other markets, we are going to be paying close attention to NQ and TF off the open. TF so far has put in this pullback on above average volume, about 120% on the relative volume chart so far. So, if that downside momentum continues in the Russell after the open, then we could get a deeper pullback in the S&P as well. And it wouldn't really change the bigger picture bullish context that we're in, but in the short term, getting a pullback down to 99 quarter to 01 quarter or 95 quarter, 97 quarter would be perfectly normal, and it wouldn't really affect the bigger picture uptrend. So, that would simply be a consolidation or simply consolidating the recent gains, and we can still find buyers at support if we get a pretty decent pullback today. So, today we are open to the short side if the other markets continue their downside momentum, but at the same time, we have to keep the bigger picture in mind because, these markets can still find support on the way down. And, given the overall bullish context, the downside could still be relatively limited, especially because we've already gotten a pretty decent pullback in the overnight session. So, even though there could be a little bit of selling still left in this market, the other markets can still find support. And, given how resilient this market's been, if that selling stops shortly after the open, then you just want to be aware of the overall context being bullish and not get, locked into a downside view or a pullback idea. So, short term, the markets can balance here, and we could see some failure, some profit taking, some selling up here, and a pullback down to at least initial support 0475 to 0675. Now this zone is purely built on the balance and the price action from yesterday, so it's not really a very strong area of support in the S&P. So, if the other markets are showing downside momentum, then we are going to be careful at the initial support zone because it may not hold. We may be looking at a deeper pullback scenario. The 99 quarter to 01 quarter is a breakout area. It's a low volume area. I expect responsive buyers there on first test. And in the event that we break below that, the 94.75 to 97 quarter zone has potential to shut off the selling and reverse ES back up towards the 1901 to 1903 area and potentially back up towards 1906. So, on the downside, we are open to buying pullbacks, but we're just going to be careful at initial support, and we're going to be watching how well the other markets are reacting to gauge, the strength and weakness of the market to figure out whether it's worth buying initial support, because initial support only makes sense if there's enough strength in this market that we're going to go back to the overnight high, back up towards 1913. And if in real time the internals are showing a lot of weakness and the momentum is clearly on the downside, then the zone may not hold, and you may be looking at a test of 99 quarter to 01 quarter, or potentially even 95 quarter, 97 quarter. So, that's really the main idea on the day. On the upside, the 1913 to 15 resistance remains intact, and given the weakness in the overnight session, I think we'll see a sell response there on first test. But we do have to keep in mind that it is at the all-time highs. So if the other markets are, running back up towards their recent highs and showing good upside momentum, then you don't want to just blindly short that area either. We could get a marginal new high on the S&P and then start balancing in a range. So that's something to keep in mind on the upside, that there isn't really any hard resistance or any confluence of resistance up here. It's simply an overnight high and a range extension. So we can't really lean on it too much. So, off the open, it's really going to be about how well NQ and TF are moving. We're seeing some better volume in TF. So, if it breaks below 1133 to 1135, that would be a red flag for buyers. On the upside, we have resistance back up towards yesterday's high in TF. So looking at roughly, around 1143 to 1145 as resistance in the Russell. And with NQ, the main upside resistance is really at the current yearly high, 37.33. We have the overnight high at 37.30, so we could get some selling and profit taking there as well. There are no econ reports or any major econ reports due today that can serve as a catalyst for a big directional move, and that's why, even if off the open the momentum is on the downside, I think that that could still be short-lived, and we can still find buyers at the support zones below, and then simply balance in a range. So, off the open, if the other markets are weak and the internals are weak and everything is looking quite weak, then we could just get a deeper pullback and then start balancing. It's simply going to be a matter of, where the market has to go before it finds buyers and starts balancing in a range. It could stop at 99 quarter to 01 quarter, or it may put in a deeper pullback down towards the 97 naked VPOC and open gap, and then start balancing in a range. But overall, we're not expecting a trend day today. Given the econ reports out tomorrow, given that overall we're in a uptrend, pullbacks are still more likely to get bought up, and for that reason, it's either going to be a balanced session at slightly lower prices to consolidate the recent gains, or we're just going to hold on to the gains and balance at some upper prices. But overall, a balanced type market is pretty likely. Unless NQ just starts blasting off to all-time highs, above the current yearly high. So, let's just keep these two views in mind. The short-term overnight has been a little weak, but bigger picture, we're still looking at a fairly strong market. And let's just balance those views based on the strength or weakness we're seeing in the market in real time. So those are the main ideas. Let's see how well the buyers are able to hold it up off the open, and we'll take it from there.